I've got a good question. This one is from someone that doesn't want to build a big business. They don't want to have a bunch of employees. They don't want to do all the work that it takes to build that type of company. And I do tend to talk about that because that has been the path that I've followed in everything I've been involved in. And I tend to look at things from the standpoint of creating wealth. However, there is an alternative viewpoint to this that's perfectly acceptable and perfectly fine. See, I think you have to figure out what it is you want for yourself, for your life. What is the thing that makes you happy? And then once you figure out what that is, you back into it and you figure out how you can get it. For me, I want bigger businesses. I don't want huge businesses. I don't care about having a $100 million company or even having $100 million in wealth. I couldn't care less. But I do want a level of wealth and a level of comfort. And for me to get that, I have to build businesses of a certain size. Plus, I just enjoy it. I don't know what else I would do that I enjoy more. But if that's not your personality, then who cares? Ignore everybody else. Don't let what you see other people saying and doing or what I say in any way influence you. You need to do what aligns with what you want. So to the point, the way you figure this out is, let's say that you don't want to have a bunch of employees. You don't want to build a big business. That's fantastic. In fact, you're ahead of the game if you know what you want from the beginning when you craft your business, when you start it. For example, if I know that all I want to do is build a business that could make me $70,000 a year, then that completely changes the way I play the game. That completely changes the way I go about building my company and the risks I take and the investments that I make and maybe even the speed at which I feel like I've got to accomplish that. So let's say that I want to make $70,000 a year working completely by myself. So I can back into some of these numbers. So let's put some numbers on the screen. I want to make $70,000 a year, and let's say I'm going to bill out my time at $40 a man hour. So some simple math would say that if I want to make $70 a year and I divide that out by $40 a man hour, I need to work 1,750 billable hours a year. Now, that's not quite accurate. I'll explain in a moment. So a typical 40-hour work week would constitute, with about 2 weeks of vacation per year, constitutes about 2,000 work hours a year. So the problem here is that you've got to work 1,750 hours of billable time, but there is other time that goes in this business. You've got to get equipment, you got to buy equipment, you've got to buy supplies, you've got to send out invoices, you've got to talk to clients on the phone, you've got to answer questions, you've got all these other activities that happen in the business. So you can't just work 1,750 hours a year and make 70 grand. You're going to have to probably work another, let's say, 10 hours a week. Plus, in the beginning, you've got to build up enough business, which means you've got to sell and do estimates to get to this point. And then once you get there, you've got to maintain it because of natural client attrition. On top of that, you've got expenses. You've got lawnmowers, you've got other types of equipment, you've got your truck, all these things will eventually wear out, you've got supplies, you've got gas, you've got maybe a storage shed. So in other words, to achieve something like $70,000 a year, if that's your goal, I'd guess you probably need to work, and totally guessing here, maybe 3,000 hours a year. And so let's do the math on that. If we're going to divide 3,000 divided by let's just say you work 50 weeks a year, which isn't even realistic in most markets because there's seasonality, so let's call it 45. You've got to work 66 hours a week. So now you look at this number and say, okay, wait a second. My goal of $70,000 a year, not having any employees, doesn't completely work. So which is more important, no employees or $70,000 a year? So you got to figure out which one's going to give. Could you be happy with $50,000 a year? Is that a realistic number? And by the way, if you're 20 years old or pretty young, and these numbers like $50,000 a year look way better to you when you're young. I remember when I moved out of my parents' house, I was 18 or 19, and I remember telling one of my friends, and we were talking, if we could just make $90,000 a year, we could do everything we want to do. I mean, that would be plenty. How could we ever need more money than $90,000 a year? I'll tell you, $90,000 a year is not that much money. I know it sounds like a lot of money, but if you want to live a pretty interesting lifestyle and you are married and you don't want your spouse to work, and you have kids and you want a few things in life, not over the top, and you want to have vacations and experience, $90,000 doesn't go very far. So I took that sidestep to say that if you're pretty young and you're listening to this and you haven't yet gone through buying a house and having kids and all these other things, these numbers might look, hey, 50 grand, 60, 70 grand, that's great. That'll be enough. Let me tell you, it's not enough. You really need to make more than that if you're going to be the sole provider. There's a study that says basically you need to make about $75,000 a year as a family income to satisfy your basic needs to make money, not the center issue of your household. I could totally see that. And $75,000 a year to me is totally an income where you're still being very careful. You have to budget and you have to say, can we take this vacation this coming December? Can we save for it? $75,000 a year doesn't go very far. So consider this as you're making your decision about which way you want to go in this. So what is more important, 0 employees or the certain specific number? So go back and watch some of my other videos if you feel that the number is the priority. For example, if you decide, I really need probably to have $80,000 a year, okay? So $80,000 a year then tells you that you're going to have to work, I don't remember, I messed up my math now, but I think it might still be the 66 hours a week. I'm not quite sure. That is $80,000 and 66 hours a week for the rest of your life as you get older, realistic. Imagine that you might get hurt. Imagine that things might happen. So if 80,000 is the most important number, then you need to consider hiring employees. And I recommend that. And so maybe what you do is you build a business where it's you, and you eventually surround yourself with 3 or 4 really good employees. Go look at some of my videos from 2014, around maybe May, June, July area. I have some videos in there where I do the math on employees and how much leverage they bring to the table. And so you might be able to achieve the numbers that you want working by yourself with just a few great employees. And employees get a bad rap. When I get to work with people that I like, that are smart, that work hard, that are taking care of their families, I would rather work with them than not have employees. The reason employees get a bad rap is because of bad hiring procedures or keeping people you should have let go too long. Employees are not bad. Employees are not that hard to manage when you get the right ones, especially when you keep your company small. So if your goal is to have a small business and just a few employees, great that you know that now. And so do the work to build just that type of a business. And then when you get it there and you're completely full, like you have plenty of work and you say, you know what, I'm full, I have 3 other employees full, I don't want any more work, keep taking work and slowly raise your prices. Start to weed out the clients that aren't perfect for you. Start to raise the prices on your client base. Start to sell work at a higher price. So for example, if you were selling your time at $40 a man hour, now you're completely full, you don't need more work, start selling your time for $45 a man hour. Slowly upgrade upgrade your business. Because what you'll find then is as you start to optimize this business, a business that might have been pretty nice, it was good for you because it was just you and the 3 people and you're making a nice income, in a year or two because you've optimized it and you've been selling work at higher and higher prices, starts to get better and better and better. Because remember, every dollar you raise price, unless you're losing money on the time you're selling, is pure profit to you. And so my example of going from $40 to $45 a man hour would be a drastic increase in your income, and it's all profit. So those are some points to consider. Go back and watch some past videos, but know that there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying, I want to run a smaller company, and that's all I really want to do.